Hello and welcome to another Whiskey review with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me for review number 221. We're off to the Highlands of Scotland with Fettercairn, and in this case the Fettercairn Warehouse number 2. This one from a few years, well, a couple of years back, 2022, and this was a fine example of one of those bottles that people were raving about. And every now and again, us whiskey enthusiasts get enthusiastic about certain bottles, and this was one that I heard a lot of people getting quite enthusiastic about. So I jumped in with everybody else and bought a bottle. It's been sitting around for a while, actually. It sat around in my cabinets for a while before I actually delved into it. There's not a whole lot out of it, in fairness, but I would say I've given it a fair go. Bottled at 48.8%. This one is matured in first and second fill American oak and Hungarian oak. Some you don't hear too often. There's nothing on the label as far as I could see about colour. However, I imagine that's natural colour. If it's not, there's not a lot added to it. It certainly is non-chill filtered. It says on the label it's non-chill filtered. This one was batch number 4, anybody asking. And as I said, the 2022 release, it was distilled in 2014 by Fettercairn there, owned by White and Mackay. So let's get stuck in, shall we? The one thing about Fettercairn, always worth noting, their stills are certainly, I think it's their low wine still. They run water down the outside of the still, causing a weird reflux. Just an interesting point. I think they're the only distillery to do it. So this lovely, light, soft, sweet, but not over sweet. It's a nice, I know sweetness just seems to come up an awful lot, and it's something that whether if you've got a sweet tooth, it's all right, but I'm starting, I've said it quite a few times of late, I'm starting to tire of over sweet whiskies. This is sweet, but it's atypical old school sweet malt. You know, not over sweet. I'm going to say stone fruit, peach, nectarine, that sort of thing. Even fresh apricot. It is a nice fresh nose. It took a while for this one to open up. As you can see, I haven't had a whole lot out of it, as I mentioned earlier. But I found this weird at first, that I didn't get what people were buzzing about. This was the thing that the first couple of times I tried this, I just couldn't find what the buzz was about at all. It just, to me, was a bit tight. It was a bit flaccid. However, that does change as you get into it. It's subtle but rich. There's a lot of distillery signature going on here. And I remember when I was doing my tasting notes, I didn't even comment on that. This is something I'm getting here and now, and it's something that I couldn't quite put my finger on before, and now I know what it is. It's all malt. It's all distillery signature. It's the fruity esters that they've managed to capture in the copper contact. It's very nice. It's very well done. Once again, I'm sort of laying my heart in my sleeve a bit early there. I'm telling you what I think, but just telling you what I think now. I'm telling you what I think of that sort of thing. When you can capture that, what I would suggest is their new make spirit with quite as I said, first, second fill American bourbon and Hungarian oak, or American oak and Hungarian oak. Quite a lot of distillery still in that nose where the maturation hasn't overruled. Ooh. Yeah, because I can smell it. It just smells like, do you know whenever you walk into a distillery, even outside, and you get that dusty malt air about the place, and it's just hanging there, and I absolutely love that smell. And it's an almost dustiness. And even if you get around some old dunnage warehouses, that smell tends to hang around as well from a bit of the oak. This is here. There's a wee bit of a sort of bladnocky slight cheesy lactic thing off it, but it's very slight. There's also, you know, I do like to change it up every now and then. There's also a hint of new car about it. Do you know the inside of a new car? That bright. And that's not necessarily something I want on my whiskey. But it is, I'm getting it there, where there's that bright new smell. Yeah, but it's just there, but the dusty malt almost is almost just trying to batter it down and keep that sharpness out of it, and it works. That dusty malt smell, that new make spirit smell, is keeping any sharper basically sort of smells that you wouldn't want in there. It's keeping them at bay enough and winning out. And even a, you know, there's even a slight hint of brass under the fruitiness. It's really, it's for a whiskey that I found at first I went into and thought this is a bit one-dimensional. It's far from it. Far from it. This is multifaceted. It's got lots going on. Lovely, bright, sparkly, sweet and sour, slightly sharp arrival. There's a dustiness once again. There's a graininess in the mouthfeel, which sort of works. That's the first pass. I'm even getting hints right at the back now of black tea, black breakfast tea. Weirdly, I wouldn't say that the nose and the palate in this match up. Those sort of dusty, malty notes I was getting on the nose, there's nothing here to suggest that in the palate. Palate's fantastic, great mouthfeel, just different. Almost I would suggest two different whiskies. Once again, it's not bad because, you know, the palate's great, the nose is great. So either way, they're both good. They just, I wouldn't have tied the two together. No, because I don't really get any of the stone fruits that I mentioned earlier. I don't really get the dusty malt. It's weird. It's clean, it's sharp, it's fruity. Yeah, but there's nothing else that would suggest that it's like what I was getting in the nose. So one end to the finish then. Finish, just slightly peppery, but not hot. Relatively short, actually. There's not a lot of flavour hanging about the back of the palate. It wouldn't, you know, it's one that it is actually now starting to get more of a heat on the back of a palate than anything else. And it's one that I would suggest, I've said it before, a term that I use, incomplete, slightly incomplete. And the nose in this is fantastic. Palate, very good. Great mouthfeel, as I mentioned. Finish, just all right. It's not the worst I've had, but just a bit, it just makes the whole thing feel a little incomplete. However, I mean, sometimes, just sometimes, one out of three can sort of can pull them up, because the nose in this is amazing. Nose doesn't change an awful lot with a drop of water. It didn't add a lot of water there. It doesn't change an awful lot. Weirdly, actually, after a while it goes a little sulphury, which is a bit strange. I've never really had sulphury notes on whiskies that haven't included some sort of peated malt. or even in some cases sherry cask influence somewhere in there. So the sulphury notes I don't quite get, but they're definitely there. Palate wise, it doesn't really change a lot either. Maybe even a little hotter, and I'm convinced actually even that those sulphury notes are in the palate as well. So I don't know what the sulphury thing's about. So no hints of chocolate maybe through the finish now, just little hints of chocolate. Good. It is good. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I tried it. Would I chase down a replacement? No. It's good. It's one that I mentioned a couple of times earlier on, that it's been open for a while, and as you can see, there's not a lot out of it. That's because I haven't visited a lot. I do like it. That's the thing. I do like it, but I like it for short bursts, and then it just doesn't do it for me. It's just not enough. It's a good whiskey. This was around, I think they were around the £60 mark roughly. I think you can probably still pick it up, but it just feels like as if it's lacking something. There's something missing. There's a nice sweetness about it. There's it's got that malty thing at the start, but it just feels like as if it's missing something there. I think I'll just leave it at that. So this reminded me slightly of something. It took me a while to figure out what it was that it reminded me of. And do you know what I think? Do you know what I think it was missing? It was something else. And I know that sounds daft. Of course it was missing something else, at least something else. It was something that this Clynelish 14 brings. And it feels like as if the Fettercairn almost feels like as if it gets to a point and then it's missing that thing. Bear with me. Bear with me. I don't care what anybody says. I've heard a lot of people, and I think it's just maybe because the Diageo were gouging a bit recently, that I think people have maybe stepped back from Clynelish a little. I love this. I still love Clynelish 14. And it's got that bit something else, and I'm convinced it's probably the waxiness in the palate that the Fettercairn is missing. I said it, the Fettercairn is good, and it is good, but it's just lacking something. And it's a body, it's something. It just feels like as if it gets to a point and then stops before it gets all the way. Clynelish 14 always gets all the way, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, don't get me wrong. You know, I wouldn't imagine anybody out there will have regretted buying the Fettercairn Warehouse 2 if they did pick the 2022 batch 4 up, or any, I don't know, I haven't tried any other batches, certainly never bought any other batches. I've maybe tried other batches by the sample, but I can't remember. It is good, and I don't regret buying it. However, I wouldn't chase it down again. There's many other whiskies out there, and you keep fooling around, and that's about all I can really say about it. I mean, sometimes you just have to, that's it, that's all we can do. So I'll just leave it at that then. That's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave it at that and say thank you very much for joining me. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much to my patrons. Should anybody wish to join that group, the details are in the video description below. So they are. I'll be back the next time, as usual. Until then, look after yourselves. Here's to your good health. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.